Chapter 1. The Ticking Enigma. The rain fell in relentless sheets over London, drumming a staccato rhythm on the windows of Hercule Poirot's impeccably ordered flat. Inside, the little Belgian detective sat in his favourite armchair, a cup of Whodunit, tisane steaming beside him, his moustache twitching faintly as he perused a letter. The paper was creased, the handwriting hurried, as though its author had been seized by urgency. "Monsieur Poirot," it began, "your reputation for unravelling the impossible precedes you. I beg your assistance in a matter most peculiar. Elias Varnum, Tockworth's finest clockmaker, has vanished. His shop is locked, his tools abandoned, and a single clock, stopped at precisely 3:17, sits on his workbench with a note. Time is no longer mine. The village is unnerved, and I fear something sinister is afoot. Come at once. Yours, Margaret. Henshaw, Tockworth postmistress." Poirot's grey eyes gleamed. Mon Dieu! A clock stopped, a note cryptic, a man vanished. This is not merely a disappearance. It is a puzzle that demands the little grey cells. He folded the letter with precision and summoned his faithful companion, Captain Hastings, who was polishing his golf clubs in the corner. "Hastings, mon ami, pack your bag. We are summoned to Tockworth, a village where time, it seems, has played a trick most foul." Hastings looked up, bewildered. "Tockworth? Never heard of it, Poirot. What's this about a clockmaker?" Poirot raised a finger. "Elias Varnum, a master of clocks, has disappeared, leaving behind a message that speaks of time as if it were stolen. A clock stopped at 3:17, précisément. This is no accident, Hastings. It is a clue, a challenge, perhaps even a cry for justice. The journey to Tockworth was a damp affair, the train rattling through mist-shrouded fields until it deposited them at a small, ivy-clad station. The village itself was a postcard of English charm. Thatched cottages, a stone church, and a marketplace, where every shop boasted a clock, some ticking, some silent, as if the village itself were obsessed with the passage of time. Yet an unease hung in the air, like a pendulum paused mid-swing. Margaret Henshaw, a stout woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense air, greeted them at the station. "Monsieur Poirot, thank heavens you've come," she said, clutching a sodden umbrella. "Tockworth's not been right since Elias vanished. He was the heart of this place. Every clock in the village bears his mark." Poirot inclined his head. "Madame Henshaw, tell me of this Elias Varnum. Was he a man with enemies? Secrets, perhaps?" Margaret hesitated, her lips pursing. "Elias was private, brilliant, mind you, but he kept to himself. Some say he was working on a clock like no other, a masterpiece for a wealthy collector. But then, 3 days ago, his shop was found empty. Just that note and the stopped clock." "And this clock?" Poirot pressed. "It was stopped deliberately." "Oh, yes," Margaret replied. "Elias would never let a clock stop. He said time was sacred, a rhythm to be honoured." Hastings shivered, pulling his coat tighter. "Sounds dashed creepy, if you ask me. A clockmaker vanishing, leaving a note about time. What's it all mean, Poirot?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "It means, mon ami, that we must listen to the silence of this clock. For in its stillness it speaks." They followed Margaret through the village to Varnum's shop, a narrow building with a sign reading "Varnum and Sons, Clockmakers since 1820. The windows were dark, the door locked, but Margaret produced a key. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of oil and polished wood. Clocks of every kind lined the walls. Grandfathers' mantles, pocket watches, all silent, as if in mourning for their maker. On the workbench sat the clock in question, a delicate piece with intricate gears visible through a glass face, its hands frozen at 3:17. Beside it lay the note, written in a trembling hand. "Time is no longer mine." Poirot leaned closer, his gloved fingers tracing the clock's edge. "Regardez, Hastings," he murmured. "The clock is exquisite, yet it is stopped not by fault, but by intent. And this note, it is not a farewell, it is a confession, or a warning." Margaret wrung her hands. "What do you make of it, Monsieur Poirot? Is Elias alive? Or worse?" Poirot straightened, his moustache curling slightly. "Madame, I make nothing yet, for the pieces of this puzzle are scattered. But rest assured, Hercule Poirot will find Elias Varnum, or the truth of what befell him. Now tell me, who in Tockworth might wish harm upon this clockmaker?" Margaret's eyes darted to the window, as if expecting eavesdroppers. "There's young Thomas, Elias's apprentice, who's been acting strange, and Lady Beatrice Carver, the collector who hounded Elias for his work. Then there's Clara Wren, who loved Elias once, before he broke her heart. And, well, the Horologist Society. They're a queer lot, always arguing over clocks and secrets." Poirot nodded, his mind already turning. "Bien. Tomorrow I shall meet these persons of interest. For now, madam, secure this shop. Let no one disturb the scene of this enigma." As they stepped back into the rain, Hastings glanced at Poirot. "Well, old chap, what's your first impression? A kidnapping? A runaway? Or something darker?" Poirot's gaze lingered on the shop's darkened windows. "Hastings, in Tockworth, time is not merely measured, it is guarded, coveted, perhaps even killed for. This clock at 3:17, it is the key, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall turn it. Before we move on, detective, where in the world are you solving mysteries with us? Drop your location in the comments, and if you're craving more twisted tales, hit subscribe. Tomorrow's case file gets even darker. Stay sharp." Chapter 2. The Village of Clocks. The morning sun pierced the mist over Tockworth, casting long shadows from the village's myriad clocks. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in his polished shoes and neatly pressed suit, strolled through the marketplace, his cane tapping a deliberate rhythm. Captain Hastings trailed behind, gawking at the sheer number of timepieces, clocks in shop windows, on lamp-posts even dangling from a baker's sign, all ticking in a discordant chorus. "Good heavens, Poirot," Hastings muttered. "It's as if the whole village is counting down to something. Gives me the creeps." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Mon ami, in Tockworth, time is not merely observed, it is worshipped, and where there is worship, there is often obsession, jealousy, even betrayal. Allons-y, we meet our suspects today." Their first stop was the Tockworth Tea House, a cosy establishment where Margaret Henshaw had arranged for Poirot to meet the key figures tied to Elias Varnum's disappearance. The air inside was thick with the scent of scones and suspicion. At a round table sat 4 individuals, each eyeing the others with barely concealed wariness. Poirot bowed slightly. "Mesdames et messieurs, I am Hercule Poirot, and this is my associate, Captain Hastings. I am here to unravel the mystery of Elias Varnum. I trust you will assist me with the utmost candour." The first to speak was Thomas Keene, Varnum's apprentice, a lanky young man with ink-stained fingers and a nervous tic. "I've nothing to hide," he said too quickly. "Elias was a good master, but, well, he'd been odd lately. Kept muttering about a clock that'd change everything." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And you, Monsieur Keene, did you see this clock? Or perhaps you know why your master vanished at 3:17? Thomas flushed. "I wasn't in the shop that night. I was at the pub. Ask anyone." Next was Lady Beatrice Carver, a statuesque woman in her 50s, draped in furs despite the mild weather. Her voice was cold, her eyes sharper than the diamonds at her throat. "Elias was crafting a masterpiece for me, a clock to rival Breguet's finest. He promised delivery last week, then vanished. Most inconvenient." "Inconvenient?" Poirot echoed, his tone deceptively mild. "Or perhaps, madame, a motive. A man who fails to deliver such a treasure might provoke displeasure." Lady Beatrice's lips thinned. "I don't stoop to grudges, Monsieur Poirot. I merely want what I paid for." Clara Wren, the third suspect, sat apart, her auburn hair pinned tightly, her hands twisting a handkerchief. She was younger, perhaps 30, with eyes that held a quiet storm. "Elias and I? We were close once," she said softly, "but he chose his clocks over me. I hadn't seen him in months, I swear it." Poirot leaned forward. "Mademoiselle Wren, a broken heart can tick as loudly as any clock. Where were you 3 nights ago, when Elias vanished?" Clara's gaze dropped. "At home, alone. I've no one to vouch for me." The final figure was Dr. Reginald Quill, president of the Tockworth Horologist Society, a wiry man with a monocle and a penchant for stroking his grey beard. "Elias was a genius, but arrogant," he declared. "He mocked our society, called us tinkers. His disappearance is no surprise. Geniuses often make enemies." "Enemies, Monsieur Quill?" Poirot asked. "Or rivals? Perhaps the society coveted his secrets." Quill bristled. "Preposterous! We are scholars, not schemers." Hastings whispered to Poirot. "A shifty lot, eh? That Thomas lad's jumpy, and Lady Beatrice has a temper. But Clara seems too gentle for foul play." Poirot smiled faintly. "Mon ami, the gentlest face can hide the fiercest motive. Observe their hands, their eyes. They betray what words conceal." As the meeting adjourned, Poirot lingered, watching the suspects disperse. Thomas hurried toward the marketplace, glancing over his shoulder. Lady Beatrice summoned her chauffeur with an imperious wave. Clara slipped out quietly, her handkerchief left crumpled on the table. Quill lingered, muttering to a waiter about society business. Margaret Henshaw approached, her face anxious. "Well, Monsieur Poirot, did you learn anything?" Poirot tapped his cane. "I learned, madam, that Tockworth is a village of secrets, each suspect a gear in a machine I have yet to comprehend. But there is one detail." He bent to retrieve Clara's handkerchief, noting a faint smudge of oil on its edge. "Curieux. A lady with no connection to clocks, yet her hands touch their lifeblood." Margaret gasped. "Oil? Could it mean—" "It means, madame, that we must visit Monsieur Varnum's workshop again. The clocks of Tockworth are speaking, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall listen." As they stepped into the street, a distant clock tower chimed, its echo lingering like a warning. Poirot's grey cells were already turning, piecing together the first threads of a mystery where time itself seemed to be the killer. Chapter 3. The Silent Workshop. The door to Elias Varnum's workshop creaked open, admitting Hercule Poirot, Captain Hastings and Margaret Henshaw into a realm where time seemed to hold its breath. The morning light filtered through dusty windows, illuminating rows of silent clocks, their hands frozen as if in reverence to their missing maker. The air was heavy with the scent of polished brass and machine oil, and every surface gleamed with the precision of a craftsman's obsession. Poirot's eyes swept the room, his gloved hands clasped behind his back. Eh, mon Dieu, what order, what symmetry! This is not merely a workshop, Hastings. It is a temple to time itself. And yet, something is désordonné, out of place. Hastings, peering at a towering grandfather clock, scratched his head. Ish, tidy enough to me, Poirot. Where do we even start? Poirot raised a finger. We start, mon ami, with the heart of the mystery. The clock stopped at 3:17. He approached the workbench where the delicate glass-faced clock sat, its hands still fixed, the note, "Time is no longer mine," folded neatly beside it. Poirot lifted the clock with care, turning it in the light. Regardez, the craftsmanship is exquisite, yet the mechanism is deliberately jammed. A pin, inserted here, halts the gears. This was no accident. Margaret clutched her shawl. Elias would never sabotage his own work. He treated every clock like a child. Précisément, madame, Poirot said, his grey eyes gleaming, which is why this act speaks of purpose, perhaps a message or a diversion. He set the clock down and turned his attention to the workbench, its surface cluttered with tools, gears, and a leather-bound ledger. Poirot opened the ledger, scanning pages of meticulous notes on clock designs, but one entry caught his eye. A sketch of a complex mechanism labelled the Chronos device, with a cryptic annotation, "For BC, to bind time forever." BC? Hastings mused. Could that be Lady Beatrice Carver? She was after some grand clock, wasn't she? Poirot's moustache twitched. Perhaps, Hastings, but assumptions are the enemies of truth. We must dig deeper. He knelt, inspecting the underside of the workbench, his fingers brushing against a hidden panel. With a soft click, it sprang open, revealing a small brass cylinder engraved with tiny symbols, numbers and letters in a seemingly random sequence. "A code!" Hastings exclaimed. "Poirot, you've done it again!" Poirot held the cylinder to the light, his brow furrowing. Not a code, mon ami, but a cipher. These symbols correspond to the gears of a clock. When aligned, they may unlock a message, or a secret Elias wished to protect. He pocketed the cylinder, his mind already turning. Madame Henshaw, was Elias known to hide such things? Margaret shook her head, bewildered. He was private, but this? It's like something out of a novel. He never mentioned ciphers or devices. Poirot paced the room, pausing at a wall-mounted clock with an oddly asymmetrical face. He tapped its frame, and a faint, hollow sound echoed. With a gentle twist, the clock's back opened, revealing a folded scrap of paper. Poirot unfolded it, revealing a single line in Elias's trembling hand. "The tower knows the hour of truth." "The tower?" Margaret gasped. He must mean the old clock tower by the church. It's been locked for years, but Elias always said it held Tockworth's soul. Hastings shivered. "Sounds ominous, Poirot. A cipher, a secret note, A stopped clock. This is getting murkier by the minute." Poirot smiled faintly. "Murk, mon ami, is where the little grey cells thrive. This workshop is a tapestry of clues, each thread leading us closer to Elias Varnum, or his fate." He turned to Margaret. "Madame, ensure this shop remains untouched, and tell no one of our findings, not even those you trust." As they stepped into the street, the village clock struck noon, their chimes overlapping in a chaotic symphony. Poirot's gaze drifted toward the distant clock tower, its weathered spire piercing the sky. "The tower knows the hour of truth," he murmured, "and I, Hercule Poirot, shall make it speak." Chapter 4. Whispers of Time. The Tockworth Inn's parlour was a haven of warmth, its fire crackling in defiance of the damp afternoon. Hercule Poirot sat at a polished oak table, his notebook open, his pen poised like a conductor's baton. Captain Hastings stood by the window, watching the village clocks tick in eerie unison. Poirot had summoned the suspects for individual interviews, determined to unravel the threads of Elias Varnum's disappearance. First was Thomas Keene, the apprentice who slouched into the chair, his eyes darting like a cornered animal's. "I told you, Monsieur Poirot, I was at the pub when Elias vanished," he said, picking at a hangnail. "The rusty cog till past midnight." Poirot's gaze was unyielding. "Vraiment, Monsieur Keene. Yet the publican recalls you left at 10. Where did you go afterward? And why did your master speak of a clock that would change everything?" Thomas's face paled. I went home, and that clock. Elias was always boasting about grand projects. I thought it was just talk." He hesitated, then added, "He argued with Lady Beatrice the day before he vanished. She was furious about delays." Poirot made a precise note. "Merci. You may go, but reflect, monsieur, on the danger of half-truths." Next came Lady Beatrice Carver, her fur coat trailing like a royal train. She sat with the air of one humouring. "A subordinate. I've no patience for this, Monsieur Poirot," she snapped. "I was at my estate, Carver Hall, 3 nights ago with my staff to confirm it. As for Elias, he was infuriatingly slow with my Chronos device. I paid a fortune for it." Poirot's moustache curled slightly. "The Chronos device, madame? A curious name. Did Elias share its purpose?" Lady Beatrice's eyes flickered. "He said it was a marvel, a clock to capture time itself. I didn't care for his riddles. I wanted results." She leaned forward. "If you must pry, ask Clara Wren. She was seen near his shop that night, skulking like a thief." Poirot's pen paused. "Intéressant. You are most helpful, madam." Clara Wren entered next, her hands trembling as she smoothed her skirt. "I wasn't at Elias's shop," she said before Poirot could speak. "Lady Beatrice is mistaken. I was home, reading. I told you I hadn't seen Elias in months." Poirot tilted his head. "Mademoiselle, a witness places you near the shop at dusk, and this handkerchief." He produced the oil-stained cloth from the tea-house. "It bears the mark of a clockmaker's trade. How do you explain it?" Clara's breath caught. I visited Elias's shop weeks ago to return a watch he'd repaired. I must have touched something oily. I swear I wasn't there that night." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Ask Dr. Quill. He was always snooping around Elias's work. Dr. Reginald Quill was the last, his monocle glinting as he settled into the chair. This is a waste of time, Monsieur Poirot," he huffed, I was at the Horologist Society's meeting till late, discussing pendulum calibration. Elias's disappearance is his own doing. He was reckless, dabbling in designs too ambitious for his skill. Poirot's voice was soft, dangerous. And yet, Monsieur Quill, you called him a genius. Did his genius threaten your society? Or perhaps you coveted this Kronos device for yourself? Quill's beard quivered. Absurd. I saw Thomas lurking near the shop that evening, looking guilty. Investigate him, not me. As Quill left, Hastings turned to Poirot. What a tangle, old chap. Thomas points to Lady Beatrice. She points to Clara, Clara to Quill, and Quill to Thomas. They're all hiding something, aren't they? Poirot closed his notebook with a snap. Précisément, Hastings. Their alibis are as fragile as a clock's spring, and their accusations form a circle of deceit. But the oil on Mademoiselle Wren's handkerchief, the name Kronos device, the hour of 3:17, these are the cogs that will turn this mystery. He rose, his eyes alight. Come, mon ami. We must verify these alibis at the Rusty Cog and the Horologist Society, and then, perhaps, the clock tower will whisper its secrets. Outside, a gust of wind carried the chime of a distant clock, sharp and fleeting, as if time itself were mocking their pursuit. Chapter 5. The midnight chime. The Tockworth Inn was cloaked in silence as midnight approached, save for the relentless ticking of a mantel clock in the parlour. Hercule Poirot sat by the fire, the brass cipher cylinder from Varnum's workshop glinting in his hand, its symbols taunting his little grey cells. Captain Hastings, half dozing in an armchair, stirred as a distant clock tower struck 12, its chimes heavy with foreboding. Suddenly, a scream shattered the night, piercing the inn's walls. Poirot was on his feet in an instant, his cane in hand. Vite, Hastings! The voice! It comes from the village! They rushed into the street, joined by Margaret Henshaw, who emerged from her cottage in a nightgown, her face pale. "It's from the marketplace!" she gasped, leading them through the mist. The village clocks, as if sensing tragedy, seemed to tick louder, their hands glinting in the moonlight. In the shadow of a clockmaker's shop, they found a grim scene. Dr. Reginald Quill, president of the Horologist Society, lay sprawled on the cobblestones, his monocle shattered beside him. A thin trickle of blood seeped from a wound at his temple, and in his clenched fist was a broken clock gear, its edge stained red. A pocket watch, stopped at 12:03, dangled from his waistcoat. "Murder!" Hastings exclaimed, kneeling beside the body. "Poor blighter didn't stand a chance." Poirot's eyes scanned the scene with surgical precision. "No, Hastings, this was no chance. The gear, the watch stopped at 12:00. It is a message, like the clock at 3:17. Regardez, the wound suggests a blunt strike, yet the gear is too small to be the weapon." He bent closer, noting a faint smudge of oil on Quill's cuff. "Curieux. Oil again, as with Mademoiselle Wren's handkerchief." Margaret wrung her hands. First Elias vanishes, now Dr. Quill murdered. Tockworth's cursed, Monsieur Poirot. Poirot straightened, his moustache a firm line. "Not cursed, madame, but manipulated. This murder is linked to Elias Varnum's disappearance, and the killer grows bold." He turned to Hastings. "Fetch the constable, mon ami, and ensure no one approaches this scene." As Hastings hurried off, Poirot examined the broken gear, its teeth etched with a tiny symbol matching those on the cipher cylinder. "Mon Dieu, the Chronos device," he murmured. "Quill knew something of it, and it cost him his life." Since dawn, the village buzzed with fear, and the remaining suspects were summoned to the inn. Thomas Keene, pale and stammering, claimed he'd been asleep at his lodgings. Lady Beatrice Carver, her composure fraying, insisted she was at Carver Hall, though her chauffeur was conveniently absent. Clara Wren, tearful, said she'd been awake, praying for Elias's safety, alone in her cottage. Poirot paced before them, his voice calm but piercing. "Mesdames et messieurs, Dr. Quill's death is no isolated act. He was struck down because he knew a secret, perhaps of the Chronos device, or of Elias Varnum's fate. One of you holds the key to this truth. Speak now, or the little grey cells shall find you out." The room was silent, save for the relentless ticking of the parlour clock. Clara's hands trembled, Thomas's eyes darted, and Lady Beatrice's lips tightened. Poirot's gaze lingered on each, as if peering through their souls. Hastings returned, breathless. "Poirot, the constables secured the scene, but there's talk in the village. Someone saw a figure near the clock tower just before the scream." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Bien. The clock tower again calls to us. Tonight, Hastings, we shall watch it. For in Tockworth, time does not merely pass, it kills." Chapter 6. The Collector's Secret. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over Carver Hall, Lady Beatrice Carver's sprawling estate on the outskirts of Tockworth. Its manicured lawns and towering oaks spoke of wealth. But Hercule Poirot, stepping from the hired car with Captain Hastings, sensed a colder truth beneath the opulence. Lady Beatrice's connection to the Chronos device, and her shaky alibi for Dr. Quill's murder, demanded scrutiny. "Rather grand, isn't it?" Hastings remarked, eyeing the marble fountain. "But Lady Beatrice doesn't strike me as the grieving type, Poirot. Think she's mixed up in this?" Poirot adjusted his hat, his eyes sharp. "Mon ami, those who covet rare things often guard dark secrets. Lady Beatrice's passion for clocks may be her motive, or her mask. Allons-y." They were ushered into a lavish drawing-room, where Lady Beatrice awaited, seated beside a glass case, displaying an array of antique clocks, their ticking a soft undercurrent. Her expression was one of strained civility, her fingers drumming on the armrest. "Monsieur Poirot," she said coolly, "this visit is unnecessary. I've told you all I know about Elias Varnum and that dreadful Quill business." Poirot bowed slightly. "Madame, indulge me. The Chronos device, which you commissioned from Monsieur Varnum, is at the heart of this affair. Dr. Quill's murder, with a gear bearing its symbol, suggests you know more than you claim. What was this device to you?" Lady Beatrice's eyes narrowed, but she gestured to a velvet-lined box on the table. "Very well. Elias promised me a clock unlike any other. A mechanism to preserve a moment forever," he said. "It was to be my legacy, a masterpiece for my collection. I paid him handsomely, but he grew secretive, delaying delivery. I suspect he meant to sell it elsewhere." Poirot's moustache twitched. "And this betrayal, madame, did it anger you? Enough to confront him at 3:17, or to silence Dr. Quill, who perhaps knew of your dealings?" Her face flushed. "How dare you? I was at Carver Hall when Quill was killed. My maid can confirm it. As for Elias, I argued with him, yes, 2 days before he vanished. He was in his shop, muttering about time's price. I thought him unhinged. Hastings leaned forward. Unhinged or scared? Did he mention anyone else? Thomas, Clara, or Quill? Lady Beatrice hesitated, then said he spoke of the Horologist Society. Said they were jealous, prying into his work. Quill, especially, hounded him about the Chronos device's design. Poirot made a note, his gaze drifting to the clocks in the case. One, a small silver piece, bore an engraving, EV 1899. Curieux, he murmured, stepping closer. A Varnum clock, from long before your recent commission. Your connection to Elias is older than you admit, n'est-ce pas? Lady Beatrice stiffened. A trinket bought years ago. It means nothing. Au contraire, Poirot said softly. In Tockworth, nothing is without meaning. He turned to the box she'd indicated, lifting its lid to reveal a sketch of the Chronos device, intricate gears and a central crystal, with Elias's note, for BC, to defy time's end. A faint oil stain marked the paper's edge, matching the smudges on Clara's handkerchief and Quill's cuff. You kept this sketch, Poirot observed. Yet Elias vanished, and Quill died. Why, madam, do you cling to a dream that brings death? Lady Beatrice rose, her voice icy. I've humoured you enough, Monsieur Poirot. Leave, or I'll have you escorted out. As they departed, Hastings whispered, She's hiding something, Poirot. That sketch, the old clock. There's history there. Poirot nodded, his grey cells humming. Oui, Hastings. Lady Beatrice's obsession is not merely for clocks, but for what they represent. Control over time, perhaps over a past she cannot escape. The oil, the sketch, the Horologist Society, these are pieces of a machine we must assemble. They paused at the estates, gates, the distant clock tower's shadow stretching toward them. Tonight, mon ami, Poirot said, we watch the tower. For its chimes, I suspect, will toll the next clue. Chapter 7. A Dance of Motives. The Tockworth Inn's dining room glowed with candlelight, its long table set for an unusual gathering. Hercule Poirot, impeccable in his evening attire, stood at the head, his eyes gleaming like a maestro about to conduct a symphony of secrets. Captain Hastings, seated to his right, shifted uneasily as the remaining suspects. Thomas Keene, Lady Shunstu, Beatrice Carver, and Clara Wren took their places, their faces a study in guarded apprehension. Margaret Henshaw hovered by the door, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm of suspicion. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet. I have invited you tonight not for mere pleasantries, but to stir the waters of truth. Elias Farnham's disappearance and Dr. Quill's murder are threads in a tapestry of deceit, and you, each of you, hold a needle. Lady Beatrice, her diamonds glinting, scoffed. This is theatrical nonsense, Monsieur Poirot. I've answered your questions. What more do you want? Poirot's moustache curled. Madame, I want the truth that hides behind your eyes. The Chronos device, which you so coveted, was no mere clock, was it? Elias spoke of defying time's end. What did he promise you? Her lips tightened, but before she could retort, Thomas Keene blurted, She pressured him, Monsieur Poirot. I heard her in the shop, threatening to ruin Elias if he didn't deliver. Lady Beatrice's gaze was venomous. You impudent boy! I paid for his work, not his excuses. If anyone drove Elias away, it was you, always skulking about his secrets. Clara Wren, pale and trembling, interjected. Stop it, both of you! Elias was scared, Not of Thomas or Lady Beatrice, but of the Horologist Society. Dr. Quill came to the shop, demanding to see the Chronos device's plans. Elias said he'd never share it. Poirot's eyes flicked between them, noting every gesture. Intéressant, Mademoiselle Wren. Yet you claim no recent contact with Elias. Yet oil stains your handkerchief, and you were seen near his shop. Why then speak of his fears with such certainty? Clara's hands twisted in her lap. I overheard him weeks ago outside the shop. I still cared for him, despite everything. Hastings leaned toward Poirot, whispering, "They're turning on each other like rats, old chap. But who's lying the most?" Poirot raised a hand for silence, producing the brass cipher cylinder from his pocket. "Regardez, a relic from Elias's workshop, its symbols etched on the gear found in Dr. Quill's hand. This Chronos device, it seems, is a magnet for betrayal. Tell me, Monsieur Keene, did you ever see Elias work on such a cipher?" Thomas's Adam's apple bobbed. I saw him with strange tools late at night. He said it was for the future. I thought he meant the clock." Poirot turned to the table, his voice sharp. "And you, mes amis, what future did you seek in Elias's genius? A legacy, revenge, or perhaps a secret worth killing for?" The room fell silent, save for the relentless ticking of the inn's clocks. Lady Beatrice's fingers clenched her napkin. Clara's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Thomas stared at the cylinder as if it might bite. Margaret, from the doorway, broke the tension. "Monsieur Poirot, the village is terrified. They say the clock tower's cursed, that it chimes for death." Poirot's gaze softened, but his resolve was iron. "Madame Henshaw, the tower chimes not for curses, but for answers. Tonight I shall visit it, and the truth shall tick closer." He stood, dismissing the group. "Reflect, all of you, on what you hide, for Hercule Poirot sees what the heart conceals." As the suspects departed, Hastings muttered, "You rattled them, Poirot, but we're no closer to the killer, are we?" Poirot smiled faintly, retrieving a napkin Lady Beatrice had left behind, its corner smudged with oil. "Au contraire, Hastings, the dance has revealed their steps. The oil, the cylinder, the tower, they converge. Come, we prepare for the midnight chime." Outside the clock tower loomed, its shadow a silent promise of revelations yet to come. Chapter 8. The Broken Cog. The Tockworth clock tower stood sentinel over the village, its weathered stones bathed in the pale glow of a rising moon. Hercule Poirot, his coat buttoned against the evening chill, approached with Captain Hastings, a lantern in hand. The tower's door, locked for years, bore a fresh scratch near the keyhole, as if someone had forced entry. Poirot's grey cells hummed with anticipation. "Looks like someone's been here recently," Hastings said, peering at the scratch. "Think it's our killer, Poirot?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon ami, in Tockworth, every mark tells a story. This tower," Elias Varnum's note said, "knows the hour of truth. Let us discover what it hides." He produced a skeleton key, procured from Margaret Henshaw, and the lock yielded with a groan. Inside the air was stale, thick with dust and the faint scent of oil. A spiral staircase led to the clock mechanism above, its gears silent, frozen since the tower's disuse. Poirot's lantern cast shadows that danced like spectres, and Hastings shivered. "Creepy place, this. What are we looking for?" Poirot tapped his cane. A secret, Hastings. Elias's note was no metaphor. Regardez. He pointed to a panel in the wall, its edges misaligned. With a gentle push, it swung open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a leather pouch, its contents spilling. A yellowed letter, a tarnished locket, and a single clock cog, broken and etched with the initials E.V. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, unfolding the letter. Dated 1899, it was addressed to Elias from one Amelia Varnum, his mother. My son, it read, forgive my silence. The scandal of your father's theft ruined us. He stole the Horologist Society's prized design, claiming it as his own. They drove us from Tockworth, but I kept his locket, proof of his shame. Hide it, lest it taint you. The locket held a faded photograph of a man resembling Elias, beside a sketch of a clock mechanism. The prototype of the Chronos device. Hastings whistled. A family scandal. Elias's father was a thief and the Horologist Society hounded them. Could Quill have known this, Poirot? Threatened to expose Elias. Poirot nodded, pocketing the items. Précisément. This cog, broken like the one in Quill's hand, links past to present. Elias's Chronos device may be his attempt to redeem his father's legacy, or to hide it. But why hide this here? And who else knew? As they ascended to the clock mechanism, Poirot's lantern caught a glint on the floor. A fresh oil smudge, identical to those on Clara's handkerchief, Quill's cuff and Lady Beatrice's napkin. Curieux, he said. The tower is a crossroads of secrets, and oil is its signature. At the top, the massive clock face loomed. Its hand stopped at 3:17, the same hour as Elias's shop clock. Poirot examined the gears, finding a faint engraving for A.V. in time's debt. Amelia Varnum, he mused. Elias left a tribute, but also a clue. This hour, 3:17, is no coincidence. It is a moment of reckoning. Hastings frowned. Reckoning? You mean Elias planned this? Or someone used his past against him? Poirot's gaze was distant. Both, perhaps. The scandal gives motive. To the Horologist Society. To Lady Beatrice, who owned a Varnum clock from 1899. Even to Clara, who may know more of Elias's heart than she admits. He turned to leave, but paused, hearing a faint creak from below. Vite, Hastings, extinguish. The lantern! In darkness they crouched, hearing footsteps retreat outside. Peering through a tower window, Poirot glimpsed a shadowed figure vanishing into the village. Our killer grows restless, he whispered. Tomorrow we confront the living with the sins of the dead. As they descended, the tower's silence felt heavier, its secrets ticking closer to revelation. Chapter 9. The Shadow of the Clock Tower. The morning mist clung to Tockworth like a shroud, as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings returned to the clock tower, its spire a grim sentinel against the grey sky. The revelation of Elias Varnum's family scandal, a father branded a thief by the Horologist Society, had ignited Poirot's little grey cells. The tower, with its stopped clock and hidden secrets, held more answers, and Poirot was determined to find them. Back to this dreary place, Hastings muttered, clutching the lantern. That figure we saw last night gives me the jitters, Poirot. What if they're watching us? Poirot's eyes twinkled. Mon ami, let them watch. The best guilty always betray themselves under pressure. The tower's secrets are a key, and Hercule Poirot shall turn it. He examined the door's scratched lock, noting a fresh chip in the wood. Regardez, another attempt to enter. Our shadow is desperate. Inside, the tower's air was colder, the silence oppressive. Poirot led the way to the clock mechanism, his cane tapping rhythmically. He knelt by the gears, where the engraving for AV in time's debt marked the 3:17 stoppage. This hour, he mused, is a moment Elias wished to preserve or expose. Hastings frowned. Expose what? His father's shame, or something about the Chronos device? Poirot's fingers traced the gears, pausing at a loose panel. With a gentle tug, it opened, revealing a hidden niche. Inside was a small journal, its pages brittle but legible, bound in leather and marked with Elias's initials. Poirot opened it, his eyes scanning the hurried script. Mon Dieu! A record of Elias's fears. The journal detailed Elias's work on the Chronos device, describing it as a clock to lock a moment to hold time's truth. One entry, dated a week before his disappearance, was chilling. Quill knows. He found father's locket in my shop, linked it to the Society's stolen design. He threatens to ruin me unless I surrender the device. BC presses harder, and CW pleads for my heart. I trust no one. The tower must keep my secret. BC, Lady Beatrice, Hastings exclaimed, and CW, Clara Wren. Quill was blackmailing. Elias and the others were closing in. But what's this about the tower? Poirot turned the page, finding a diagram. A gear sequence matching the brass cipher cylinder. The cylinder unlocks the device, he said. Elias hid its key here, fearing betrayal. But regardez, he pointed to a final note. TK saw too much. If I fall, the tower's chime will name my foe. Thomas Keene, Hastings gasped. He's in deep, Poirot. Could he be the shadow we saw? Poirot pocketed the journal, his face grave. Perhaps Hastings, but the oil smudges on Clara, Quill, Lady Beatrice, and here suggest a conspiracy or a clever ruse. He stood, his gaze fixed on the clock face. The chime Elias speaks of, it is not mere sound. It is a mechanism, a trap set to reveal the guilty. As they descended, a faint click echoed from the tower's base. Poirot froze, signalling silence. Through a crack in the stairwell, he glimpsed a glint of metal. A tool dropped in haste. Rushing down, they found it. A clockmaker's screwdriver, engraved with TK. The tower door swung ajar, the mist swallowing any trace of the intruder. Thomas, Hastings said. He's our man, Poirot. Poirot's moustache twitched. Non, Hastings. A tool left so conveniently. It is a breadcrumb, meant to mislead. The true killer dances in the shadows, but their steps falter. He clutched the journal tighter. We return to the inn. The suspects must face Elias's words, and the tower's chime will soon sing. Outside, the village clocks struck noon, their discord a warning that time was running out. Chapter 10. The ticking trap. The Tockworth marketplace buzzed with anticipation as dusk settled, its cobblestones aglow with lanterns for an impromptu event. An auction of Elias Varnum's clocks, announced by Hercule Poirot himself. Villagers and curious outsiders crowded around a makeshift stage where Poirot stood, his silhouette framed by the clock tower's looming shadow. Captain Hastings, stationed near the crowd, scanned for familiar faces, his nerves taut. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice carrying like a chime. Tonight, we honor Elias Varnum by offering his creations to the highest bidder. But one item is singular, the Chronos device, a clock said to defy time itself. Its cipher, found in his workshop, rests here." He held aloft the brass cylinder, its symbols glinting, then placed it beside a veiled object on the table. "Hastings," whispered to Margaret Henshaw nearby, "Poirot's mad to flaunt that thing. The killer's bound to make a move." Margaret's eyes were wide. "I hope he knows what he's doing, Captain. Tockworth's on edge." Among the crowd, the suspects stood out. Thomas Keene, fidgeting at the edge. Lady Beatrice Carver, her gaze fixed on the veiled object. Clara Wren, clutching a shawl, her face pale. Poirot's plan was simple yet daring. Bait the killer with the Chronos device, forcing them to act. The screwdriver marked TK, and Elias's journal had tightened the noose. But Poirot suspected a deeper deception. "Regardez," Poirot continued, unveiling a clock, an intricate piece with a crystal core, its gears eerily still. The Chronos device, incomplete yet priceless. Who will claim it? He paused, eyes sweeping the crowd. Or perhaps its true owner is here, driven by guilt or greed. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Lady Beatrice stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Monsieur Poirot, this is reckless. That clock is mine by right. I paid for it," Thomas interjected, his voice cracking. "You hounded Elias for it. He hid it because he didn't trust you." Clara's voice was soft but firm. "He hid it to protect it. Elias said it was dangerous, that it could ruin lives." Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. "Silence. The device holds a secret, locked by this cipher. Elias wrote of a chime to name his foe. Tonight we shall hear it." He inserted the cylinder into the clock's base, turning it with a click. The gears whirred, and a faint melody began. A chime, haunting and deliberate, echoing the tower's midnight toll. The crowd gasped as the clock's crystal glowed, projecting a shadow on the stage. A silhouette of a figure holding a gear, poised to strike. Hastings gripped Poirot's arm. "Good Lord, it's a trap! The clock's showing the murder!" Chaos erupted. Thomas bolted toward the stage, shouting, "It's not me!" Lady Beatrice froze, her eyes darting to Clara, who stumbled, back, tears streaming. Poirot's voice cut through the din. "Arrêtez! The chime has spoken, and the guilty cannot hide." Before anyone could move, a figure lunged from the crowd, snatching the cylinder from the clock. Poirot, anticipating the move, signalled Hastings, who tackled the figure. A hooded man, revealed as the inn's waiter, Simon Holt, a Horologist Society member. In his pocket was a vial of oil, matching the smudges found throughout the case. Poirot faced the crowd, undeterred. "Mes amis, the trap is sprung, but the truth is not yet complete. Monsieur Holt is a pawn, sent to retrieve the cipher. The sheer-itch true killer remains among us, and the clock tower's final chime will name them." As Holt was restrained, the suspects' faces betrayed fear, guilt, and defiance. The tower loomed, its silence a promise of judgment. Chapter 11. The final chime, the Tockworth Inn's dining room, was a crucible of tension, its clocks ticking like a heartbeat as Hercule Poirot stood before the gathered suspects. Thomas Keene, Lady Beatrice Carver, and Clara Wren. Captain Hastings guarded the door, while Margaret Henshaw and the restrained Simon Holt, the Horologist Society's lackey, sat in uneasy silence. The brass cipher cylinder and Elias Varnum's journal rested on the table beside the Chronos device, its crystal dim but ominous. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice a blade, "the time for secrets is ended. Elias Varnum's disappearance and Dr. Quill's murder are not mere crimes. They are a symphony of betrayal, played on the strings of time. Tonight, Hercule Poirot shall conduct its final note." Lady Beatrice's eyes blazed. "This is absurd. You've caught your thief. Halt! Let us be done with this farce." Poirot raised a finger. "Non, madame. Monsieur Holt stole the cipher, yes, but he is a pawn, sent by the Society to bury Elias's secrets. The true killer, the one who stopped Elias's clock at 3:17 and struck Quill at midnight, is here among you." Thomas stammered, "It wasn't me. The screwdriver you found. It was planted, I swear." Clara's voice trembled. "Please, Monsieur Poirot, tell us, where is Elias? Is he alive?" Poirot's gaze softened, but his resolve was iron. "Patience, mademoiselle. Let us reconstruct. Elias Varnum, burdened by his father's scandal, crafted the Chronos, device, a clock to lock a moment, to preserve his legacy. But Dr. Quill, learning of the stolen design, blackmailed him. Lady Beatrice demanded the device for her own glory. And you, Mademoiselle Wren, loved Elias, yet hid your visits to his shop." He turned to the journal. "Elias wrote of fear, Quill's threats, Thomas's curiosity, Clara's pleas, and Lady Beatrice's greed. He hid the device's key in the clock tower, setting a chime to name his foe. But the oil smudges on your handkerchief, Mademoiselle Wren, on Quill's cuff, on Madame's napkin, and in the tower, tell a different tale." Poirot paced, his grey cells alight. "The twist, mes amis, is this. Elias Varnum is not missing. He is dead, murdered at 3:17 in his shop, his body hidden to mask the crime. The stopped clock was his final act, a clue to his killer. Quill, suspecting the truth, was silenced with a gear. His watch stopped at 12:03. But the killer made a mistake. The oil, unique to Elias's workshop, marked their hands." Lady Beatrice scoffed. "Preposterous! You've no proof!" Poirot's eyes locked on Clara. "Au contraire, Mademoiselle Wren, you claimed no recent contact with Elias. Yet oil stained your handkerchief. You were in the shop at 3:17, were you not? You loved Elias, but he rejected you again, choosing his device over your heart. In a moment of rage, you struck him, hid his body in the tower, and stopped the clock to feign his disappearance." Clara's face crumpled, tears falling. "No, I didn't mean to. He said he'd never love me, that the device was his life. I hit him with a gear. It was an accident. I hid him in the tower, but Quill saw me. He demanded the device, so I killed him too." The room gasped. Thomas slumped, relieved. Lady Beatrice's jaw tightened. Her role as a greedy instigator exposed but not criminal. Holt hung his head. The Society's plot to steal the device thwarted. Poirot's voice was gentle but firm. "Mademoiselle, love twisted your heart, but justice must tick on. The tower's chime set by Elias named you through the oil you could not wash away." As the constable led Clara away, Hastings whispered, "Poor girl, Poirot! But how'd you know it was her?" Poirot smiled faintly. "The oil, mon ami, was her signature, and the Chronos device, meant to lock a moment, locked her guilt instead. The clocks struck midnight, their chimes a requiem for Tockworth's lost souls. Chapter 12. The time restored, the morning sun broke through Tockworth's mist, casting a gentle light over the village, as if time itself sought to heal its wounds. Hercule Poirot stood in the marketplace, his hat tilted against the breeze, watching villagers resume their routines. The clocks, once silent in fear, ticked again, their chimes a soft hymn of renewal. Captain Hastings beside him packed their bags for the return to London, his expression a mix of relief and melancholy. "Well, Poirot," Hastings said, glancing at the clock tower, "you've done it again. Clara's in custody, the Chronos device is safe, and Tockworth's no longer haunted. But I can't help feeling sorry for her. Love's a cruel thing, isn't it?" Poirot's moustache curved slightly. "Mon ami, love is a pendulum, swinging between joy and destruction. Mademoiselle Wren let it swing too far, and Elias Varnum paid the price. Yet, in solving this puzzle, we have restored balance, not only to Tockworth, but to the truth." Margaret Henshaw approached, her face weary but grateful. "Monsieur Poirot, the village owes you everything. We found Elias's body in the tower, just as you said, hidden behind the gears. He's at rest now, and the Horologist Society's been shamed for their scheming. But what of the Chronos device?" Poirot gestured to the inn where the clock sat under lock and key. "It is a marvel, madame, but dangerous in its allure. Elias designed it to preserve a moment, perhaps his father's honour, but it became a beacon for greed and betrayal. I have advised it be studied, not sold, lest it spark another tragedy." Margaret nodded, then hesitated. "And Lady Beatrice? She's left for London, but there's talk she funded the Society's plot to steal the device." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Vraiment, madame, Lady Beatrice's hands are not clean, but they are not bloodied. Her greed stoked the fire, but she did not strike the match. The law may yet clip her wings, but that is not Poirot's task. My duty is to the truth, and it is served." As they walked to the station, Hastings glanced at the tower, its clock now ticking at the correct hour. "You know, Poirot, that 3:17 business. Elias setting the clock as a clue, it's almost poetic, like he knew his end was coming." Poirot paused, his gaze distant. "Oui, Hastings. Time is the great witness, silent yet eloquent. Elias's clock at 3:17, Quill's watch at 12:03. They spoke when their masters could not, and I, Hercule Poirot, listened." He tapped his temple. "The little grey cells, they hear the whispers of time, and they never fail." The train's whistle sounded, and they boarded, Tockworth fading into the mist. Poirot settled into his seat, a tisane in hand, and murmured, "Justice, mon ami, is like a clock. Its gears must turn, its balance must hold. In Tockworth, we have set it right." As the village vanished, a single chime echoed from the tower, a final note of peace, ticking into eternity. Chapter 13. The echo of Time a Week had passed since Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings left Tockworth, the village's clocks now a distant memory. In his London flat, Poirot sat by the fire, a letter from Margaret Henshaw in hand, its contents stirring his little grey cells. Hastings, sipping tea across from him, noticed the faint crease in Poirot's brow. "Something troubling you, old chap?" Hastings asked. "I thought Tockworth was settled." Clara confessed. Elias's murder solved, the Chronos device locked away. Poirot's moustache twitched. "Mon ami, a case is never truly closed until every gear aligns. Madame Henshaw writes of a discovery in Elias Varnum's shop, found during its clearing. It is inattendu." He unfolded the letter, revealing a small sealed envelope tucked inside, marked "To be opened by H. Poirot." Hastings leaned forward. "Good heavens! A message from Elias? What's it say?" Poirot opened the envelope with care, extracting a single sheet in Elias's precise hand. "Monsieur Poirot," it read, "if you read this, I am gone, and my device has spoken." The Chronos device was no mere clock, but a vault for truth. Its crystal holds a recording, etched in light, of my father's confession. His theft was no theft, but a design stolen from him by the Horologist Society. I meant to expose them at 3:17, the hour of my father's disgrace. But I fear betrayal. If I fall, let the device chime for justice." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Mon Dieu! The twist! Elias's device was not to preserve a moment, but to right a wrong. The society, not his father, was the thief. A scandal they killed to bury. Hastings gasped. So Quill's blackmail, Clara's rage, Lady Beatrice's greed, they were all pawns in a bigger game. But the device is locked away. Can we prove this? Poirot rose, retrieving a telegram he'd sent to Tockworth's authorities. "Oui, Hastings. I have instructed the device be examined. Its crystal, I suspect, uses a technique Elias pioneered. Light etched on quartz, a primitive phonograph. The society's leaders, shamed by Holt's arrest, will face scrutiny. Lady Beatrice, too, may find her influence waning." He paced, his voice soft. Elias Varnum was no mere clockmaker, but a poet of time, crafting a legacy to redeem his father. Clara's love, Quill's greed, the society's deceit, they silenced. Him, but his chime echoes still. Hastings smiled. "You gave him justice, Poirot. Tockworth's clocks tick for him now." Poirot nodded, gazing out at London's skyline. "Vraiment. Tim, mon ami, is a relentless judge, but with the little grey cells we ensure its verdict is true." A distant church clock chimed, its echo a final tribute to Tockworth's truth, restored at last.